The story of Osinachi is one that began with songs and many people liking her all over the world. But behind all those songs, behind the Christian life, behind her smiles, she was fighting a secret battle that many people were not even aware of. In 2017, millions of Nigerians and Christians around the world was so happy with Osinachi's song. This woman is was married and she had four kids. So this woman has this powerful voice that many people admired so much. She featured in songs like Ekweme, which I just attached here. So this song became very massive. It was a very massive hit that many parts of Nigerians, many parts of states in Nigeria loved the song and it was trending as at that time. Osinachi quickly became the Nigerians' most recognized gospel minister. They called her for songs, they called her for ministration, they called Osinachi for many church activities. She actually looked joyful, happy, and deeply connected to God. But something was off about her. According to family members, the court testimonies, there was another side to life that many people never saw. She got married to a man named Peter, but behind the fame, there was trouble in marriage, serious trouble in marriage. Osinachi was married to Peter Mwachukwu for some years. She was able to manage his behavior and the career. She was trying to cope both having children and also coping with marital affairs and still trying to manage her gospel ministration career. And that wasn't a very easy one. But where it looks very deep is that this man was not even trying to help this woman at all. There was financial abuse, there was emotional abuse, there were, times people gifted Osinachi, but this man took those things away from her. Her personal decision is what people blame so much on her by keeping this kind of marital issue very far away from people who would have been of help. Even the family members, close friends, people that were close to her, she often stayed in a place where she was repeatedly treated like a maid, not even a wife. You know, the shock came after her demise. On April 8th, 2022, news broke that Osinachi has passed at the age of 42 in a hospital in Abuja. A first, in fact, a news many people were reporting. This news suggested that she had died of illness, which was what her husband wanted to bring to the eyes of people. And this man wanted to make people believe that Osinachi died of throat cancer, a throat cancer that her family was not even aware of. There were claims she had health issues, which led to her demise. Fans mourned her demise as tragic loss of a gospel singer and somebody who was even loved by many Nigerians. Within those days, disturbing allegations began to surface online. Her family publicly rejected the cancer story. Yes, because her family was aware of what was going on. Imagine a man who stopped the mother of Osinachi Nwachukwu from coming to see her daughter, keeping her away from her family, not only her family, her friends, and even her twin sister. Osinachi had a twin, yes, but she was not ever allowed to be connected to her twin. Osinachi suffered repeated domestic abuse, and this man claimed that a violent assault by her, like the man was actually trying to put the blame on the woman. There were too many stories the stories came from this angle, from family, from friends who were a little bit aware of what was happening in her marriage. Friends also came forward with stories of abuse, that they said Osinachi privately shared with them over the years, in as much as Osinachi didn't want them to share the stories publicly. One friend claimed she had turned, in fact, the nation and what turned this. It was actually like what people see, what the society see marriage as. Something like this woman wouldn't want to be seen as a divorcee, something like that. So the story was a very complicated story. As public outrage grew, Nigerian police arrested Peter Nwachukwu and launched an investigation, serious investigation, because this is a very serious case. The case quickly became one of the most discussed stories in Nigeria. As at 2022-2023, many people questioned why a successful and respected woman, a gospel singer, would remain in alleged abusive marriage, a relationship that was not working for so long. You decided to risk your own life. Had it been that this man was able to, trick the government and people who were asking questions, had it been this man succeeded with all those stories and lies, this man would have still been living now to get married to another woman and continue with his life, not even minding what he has done to another woman's life. Other people pointed to social media pressures, religious pressure, religious teachings about marriage, and fear of public judgment. Maybe she was like, what are people going to say if I eventually leave my marriage? And many gospel singers, many of Christian, representatives, pastors, they mostly see themselves in this space. Like some of them doesn't want to be judged by the public or seen like a divorcee. But it's something that is dragging a lot of Christians to the mud, dragging a lot of Christians to early grave. Prosecutors presented witness, yes, including two Osinachi's children who allegedly described repeated abuse from their father inside this home, inside the family. Members, close associates also testified that this man has been constantly humiliating this woman. The government eventually filed multiple charges against Peter Machuku, including culpable homicide, violent, child cruelty. These were charges that were pressed against Peter Machuku, and also related offenses. It was about 23 counts that they gave him. His charges were much. So one complicated aspect of this case was that the medical evidence, reports indicate that an autopsy that was conducted on Osinachi did not even clearly show, obvious external signs of violence. This listed several medical conditions affecting Osinachi's organs and heart. So the autopsy that was even conducted did not show that this woman was going through any heart problem or organ issue or cancer or anything. So prosecutors argued that the broader evidence, including witness testimony and history of abuse, showed a pattern of violence that contributed to her demise. So that was how court was able to detect that this man, the evidences, the testimonies that were coming from people is true. And this woman passed because maybe, we can't be blaming the dead, but just maybe she was scared of what people are going to say that made her remain in a marriage as abusive as that. This woman was even gifted a car by the church, but guess what happened? This man took it away from her. Most times, on several occasions, she was pushed out of the car to walk home with the children or to even take a public vehicle, a woman who owns a car. She got married to a man who her enemies were actually using, and it was in disguise. She thought she's married to a human, but that man is something else. So in my next video, I'm going to tell you the full story of what court decided and what happened to the husband of Osinachi, Machuku. So just stay tuned and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Share this video to others because many do not know the story of how Osinachi lost her life in marriage. Stay tuned.